want to fend for myself, and I want to build people up for them to fend for. Michael Gonzalez, welcome to the show, brother.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity.
You started following me on Facebook, I believe, and reached out that you wanted to come do the show, and we spoke, and you've got a story of childhood abuse, and I was like, come on in.
Yeah, like you said, I saw your podcast, just scrolling through, the YouTube thing, and I seen the headline on your podcast, Survivor takes his abuser's life, and I'm like, what? So I kind of looked at it, I think this guy has the same story as me, but the only thing different that you went and did what you did.
Yeah.
We'll
get into yours.
Yeah.
You went to your abuser's house just like I did, and a couple circumstances changed your decision, or else we would have had identical paths.
Right, exactly.
So just to give some people a background, where did you grow up? How old are you now? What era are we talking about?
I'm 66 now. We're talking late 60s, early 70s.
And you grew up
I grew up in a town called Leonia, New Jersey.
Leonia.
Yeah, it's right outside the George Washington Bridge.
Right at the base of it there?
Right at the base of it. Actually, I was born in Fort Lee.
Okay.
Me and my older brother. And we stayed there for like 2 years, and then my parents bought a house in Leonia. I'm one of 6 brothers.
I harp on this like every time I have someone who was abused on the show. I'm like, first the abuser has to win over the community, win over the family, and then win over the victim. And in your case is no different. This was the popular teacher. Everybody loved him. Everybody thinks, their priest is the best. Well, my priest is a nice guy. Well, every other priest that abused, everybody said the same thing about that priest.
Right.
Every coach or teacher that abused, everybody said they were the nicest one.
Yeah.
That's what they have to do. It's like, and yet everybody still wants to trust their kid with a person in authority just because they're an authority figure, but you can't nowadays.
Right. In this guy's case, he was a brand new teacher. 3rd grade. I got him his first year.
How old was he?
Oh, he was probably in his early 19, 20 years old. He came out of a town in Fairview, New Jersey. He was teaching at a school up there, a Catholic school. He was a tutor or something. And I guess Leonia hired him as a teacher. So, like you said, everybody was so excited. The teacher, new guy, blah, blah, this and that. And yeah, I remember that day. It's my first day in his class.
Did he groom you ahead of time? How to take us into the grooming and everything?
Well, I'm a survivor. He molested me over 500 times, so probably more. And 99% of that took place right in the classroom. Yeah. This was over a 4 or 5, 6 year period. 3rd grade, 4th grade. He left me back in 3rd grade just to get at me again.
Didn't he take you and a friend for ice cream?
Grooming started very early. One of my first experiences, he took us to this old soda pop place, the old school places with the, turnaround seats and the soda pop guy. That was one of my first experiences, and that's when the grooming started. It started right away.
Was this at lunch or after school?
After school.
After school.
How I got there with him, I don't remember ever calling my parents back then. There's no phones or nothing, so he just took us on his own. Yeah, and this was in 3rd grade, so I don't know where everybody was, who was paying attention.
Right.
I don't even ever tell my parents or anything what he did or nothing. But
so he takes you for ice cream.
Right.
He's the nice, cool young teacher.
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna love him.
Right.
And then how does he get you the first time?
I remember him sitting me back at the classroom, so I'd be like one of the last students to get out when it was lunchtime or after school. And everybody would just funnel towards the door, right? And I would kind of be like one of the last ones going out the door. And he'd be at the door while everybody would be going out. But then when I got up to him, the arm went out to prevent me from going out the door, while the other kids were still piling out the door. And I knew what that meant, but I remember the first time. because every time was like the first time.
For the first time, what are you thinking? Like
I
he's
don't
got
know.
his arm out, stopping you from leaving.
I don't know what's up. So, and he closes the door, and I remember him looking out the window to make sure, whatever, nobody seen or what was going on. And he walks back to the end of the classroom, and there's this paper towel dispenser. It's a white one, and it's on the wall. And I remember him going over and taking the paper towels out, comes walking over to me, and then there's these long closets back then where, you hang up your raincoats and put your boots in there, They were pretty big closets. And there were sliding doors that opened up, and we were at the end of it, end of the closet there on the right-hand side. And we go in, he closed the closet, take down his pants, take down my pants, have me masturbate him until, he ejaculated. And sometimes that took a long time. Where I'm going, I don't hate to be graphic, but this is the deal, and
so this is in this, like, almost every time or 500 times is happening in that classroom with that scenario.
Yes.
And no one, I mean, your classmates at some point had to say, like, why is teacher blah, blah, blah keeping you back? Or where were you at lunch?
That's the hardest thing that I always try to figure out, but that's just what happened, It's hard to explain why nobody, even there was a library. The library was right across the hallway. It's always the librarian in there. She don't notice this guy's behavior always, but it's still hard to explain and try to figure out. But no, nobody ever
said anything. And back then, like in towns, like if you grow up in a town and you go to school in the town, you can go home at lunch. So like you would get an hour, right? And you could go home. You could go to
a little bit more than an hour. People would walk home. Back in the day, you can come back playing out in the schoolyard again for another half hour before you had to go back into school. Most of the time, I did go home every once in a while. How I did manage that, but most of the time when I did stay at school, he must have knew for some reason. I don't know. But most of the time I didn't go home for lunch. I would be eating lunch in school. That's the way it usually was, because I had to walk up this hill and back, and that would easily take up most of the time. So most of the time he spent that time eating at school. And it depended on how long he decided, how long it would take with the act is when I left, And when I went outside, because I was supposed to meet kids to play every day, because I went to school with them in the morning. And we'd always discuss, we'll meet at lunchtime or whatever. And I would always show up late. Hey, Mike, where you been? And or something or another, I remember,
And what would you tell them?
I don't know what I would tell them. Maybe in the beginning, I was here or there or whatever. But after a while, and then that's when I think I started to become a bully because they were asking too many questions.
So you became a bully?
Oh, yeah, bad. Yeah, that was my defense mechanism to hide what was happening to me. Because, I had a lot of brothers. We were very, I was a pop, not pop, but we had a lot of friends. I couldn't let that out. So that was my defense mechanism. And that went on for my whole school year career, up until 12th grade. It was a total mess.
What are you, 8 years old?
Yeah.
Starts at 8 years old, and it went on for how many years?
Up until I left that school, which was 7th grade. It tapered off at 6th and 7th grade.
As you started getting older.
As I started getting older, I guess I was, too old for him and started worrying about maybe me opening up my mouth. But at the same time, he's still molesting other kids. I don't know that at this time, but.
Now, is he swearing you to secrecy?
No.
Threatening you?
None of that.
Nothing. Just the shame alone
he was
keeping
good at his
you
job.
silent.
He knew that, yeah, and everybody else. It's just the shame alone. And he never addressed that. And with the survivors that I talked to, that's never come up, where he, threatened anybody, nothing like that. It was just he knew. I guess he knew the kids to go after, the popular ones that had a lot of friends, knowing that they wouldn't say anything, and they didn't. Everybody stood silent for 14 years watching some kids suffer and nobody said something because of the shame.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that one, all it takes is one time.
So this guy molests hundreds of kids, and he doesn't have to threaten a single one of them.
No, he didn't
Just
threaten a single one of them.
Shame alone kept them silent, kept all of you silent.
And he wasn't that type that threatened anybody. He was just a very soft,
Mild
mild
guy.
man, where he didn't have to do that.
Did you ever think of telling your parents or anybody else?
No,
No,
never.
never.
That wasn't coming out. There's no way to shame. Because back then, now, you tell your friends that, what do you become? You become
What are you,
a
gay?
gay guy.
What are you,
Are you
gay?
kidding me? That ain't coming out. You think I'm going through the rest of my life being called, you know how kids are back then.
Did any of them back then say like, "Hey, Mister blah blah blah, he keeps putting his arm out and stopping you. What's going on with you two?"
No.
Nobody ever said that.
They're too
Or if
young. They don't understand that either.
Or if they did, that's where you would be a bully, and
that wasn't going to happen. Nobody was finding out. You know what I mean?
but you became a bully to cover up.
What was happening to me? That was
Right.
my
So
disguise.
nobody would even
think I'm
suspect
gay
it.
or something. You know how that was. What would come?
Right.
People did find out, especially the crowd I was growing up with. You know what I mean? My friends, and we were pretty rough bunch of kids. Boys and stuff.
At the time, did you see him like with other kids?
Oh yeah. I'd seen him come out of a closet with one kid.
You did.
Yeah. We were playing soccer out in the. It was at lunchtime, and soccer ball ran up to his window, and I went to pick it up. And when I came up, I looked in his window, and he was coming out of this closet with one of these kids. I was like, and to myself, I was like, oh no, got him too.
Got another one.
Yeah. So that day, I knew that it wasn't just me. There's a lot more. A lot of other kids were getting it too, but I just stayed silent about it. What was I going to do?
How did this affect you as you proceeded forward from 8 on?
Got up every day, just through life. I remember always saying to my mom, I don't want to go to school. Because she had 5 kids at this time, are all in school. And he knew that too. He knew my family situation. My mother's sending 5 boys, so she has her hands full. And to her too, when he took us, when she knew, he had us for the day and she didn't have to worry about it. That was her mindset. She trusted this guy. He came and picked me up at a party my mom was having in her backyard. This was my first year in the school. He had the nerve to come, the balls, come pick me up, walk up my driveway. My mom's having a big family party in the back. And he introduces himself. And nobody finds it odd that he's coming, a 20-year-old guy, coming to pick up an 8-year-old on a weekend to take him to the freaking movies. So I remember my mama introducing, my grandmother was there. And when we left, I heard the story that my grandmother said something to my mother saying, why are you letting him, because she knew something was up. Why are you letting him take Michael, to a movie? My mother's like, oh, he's out, whatever. And he molested me in the movie theater that day, And then on the way home, he made sure that I would know what happened in the movie and this and that, because he knew he was going to drop me off back at that party. People might start asking questions. So he's very nervous. So he was telling me all the way home, versing me about what I saw, what was the movie about, just to make sure I said the right thing. And that was it. My mother never asked me about the movie or nothing that day, And later on in life, I heard there was a really big blowout with my mother and my grandmother. And my mother's like, oh, you mind your own business. And I don't want to say this about my mother, but this is just, I got to tell what happened in my life. It's just the way it was.
Was your father in the picture?
Yeah, my father was around, but he was a working man.
He was working all the time.
Yeah, he's got 6 boys,
to feed.
2 jobs. And we've only seen him, when he came home for dinner and stuff like that, or when he had time to come see our football games or some sports. But he's a busy guy, But he was in our life, sure. Yeah, he was there. But my mom was, one in control, really.
Right. She's the homemaker, in
Yeah.
charge of the boys in the house.
Yeah, she went gray early.
Well,
Yeah.
predators, once they get one member of the family, they go after others. Did
Yeah.
that happen with you?
Yeah,
With
yeah.
6 brothers?
that was my turning point in my life when I found out what he did with my brother Joe. Yeah, through this lawsuit. We sued the town of Leonia, the Board of Ed. But I found out some horrible details about what he did to my brother Joe. At 5 years old, he got him.
5.
5. And I always try to figure out how the fuck did he get my brother Joe at 5 years old. But the story is, I remember being at his house one day. Now I'm 6th or 7th grade, and I'm in his backyard, and he has me cutting his lawn. And I know he was older because it was one of those gas ones where you push. So, you have to be a little bit older, not to work back. It's a gas mower. I'm cutting his grass, and I know he's watching me the whole time out his back window where his bedroom was. So now I finished cutting his grass. Now I got to go knock on his door and tell him I'm finished. But I know what's going to happen, So takes me in the house, and he takes me into his bedroom, undresses me, has me, masturbating him on the bed. He's doing it to me. Then he gets me off the bed, and he brings me to the end of the bed and leans me over the back of it, starts rubbing his penis up my exposed buttocks and stuff like that. And after that happened, he started masturbating me now. And this was my first ejection, was this guy. And I didn't know what this was. I didn't know what was going on. The first time, it's like I was horrified to see this, thing come out of my body, the substance. And I don't want to be graphic. This was my first experience with this shit. And so that happened and stuff. And I remember walking out of his house and around the side, but that was it. That's all I remember about that day. So in the course of this lawsuit with my brother Joe, which you're part responsible for, from how I found out through the years with you and Mark, that I caught that.
With the changing of the law.
Yeah, this is how, it's a miracle what's going on right now in my life, that this was all together. It's all for a reason. But anyway, through the course of the lawsuit, my wife is doing a deposition with the lawyers, and nobody can be in the room, right? So after the deposition, I come up and I say, "Hey, Dawn, how did it go?" and stuff, Oh, good. And then I said to her, "So did they say anything about Joe or anything?" And as soon as I said my brother Joe's name, I saw her face change, because I've been with my wife 40 years. Of course, you're going to know her, So when I saw that, I was like, what's the matter? I said, what's the matter with Joe? What did they say about Joe? And I pressed her on it. And she said, the lawyers wanted to know, they asked me this the night before the deposition. They were brief, going over pre-deposition thing, going over things with her. And the lawyer said to my wife, she goes, "Does Mike know anything about what happened to Joe?" And she goes like, "No, what do you mean?" She goes, "Does he know that Joe was there the day he was cutting the lawn?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Did he ever bring that up to you?" He goes, "No." Does he? He's not aware Joe was there that day. I'm like, "No." She goes, "Well, the day Michael was cutting his lawn, he had picked me and my brother up on the street somewhere in Leonia and brought us back to his house. And this is where I blocked this part out. I don't have any recollection of it because I guess I blocked it out. And while I was cutting his lawn, he was molesting my 5-year-old brother in his house. Mm. And I was like, "What are you talking about? He wasn't there. I would know he was there." But then how did he know I was cutting the lawn? Because he told the lawyers that I was molested by Mr. Aganassi at 5 years old at his house while my brother was cutting his lawn. So he had to be there.
Right. And you have no recollection.
I had no recollection. I must have blocked that out.
Blocked it out.
And I always thought that, like, how could people block memory out like that? Well, it's true. It happened to me.
It happens.
And how much more did I block out that I'm not aware of? I don't want to know.
Right.
I don't want to, you know what I mean? I don't want to know what I blocked out.
Yeah.
But to this day, I'll deny it. And he molested my brother from that point for another 5 years.
That's got to hurt.
It got to hurt. And I didn't find this out until this lawsuit.
All right.
I only thought it was like maybe once or twice. But it was
Over 5 years.
5 years.
Just like you.
3 or 4 times a week, like me. And not just me, but the rest of the guys, too, who's all the same thing many times, course of the years. So you figure it out. This guy must have been doing 2 or 3 kids a day. He had to be, if you want to keep up that record.
Hundreds of kids probably in this closet at his home. You're not the only one, I'm sure.
It's all
he
there.
picked up
it's
for
in the
movies.
newspaper. If you go to the New York Times back then, because that was a big story in the New York Times. And they were interviewing kids. They were saying thousands of kids went to his home. But we always thought it was boys. It's girls now still.
Because you just told me before we started that he was also involved in other organizations, right?
The Boys and Girls Clubs on New Jersey.
He was a volunteer there.
Too. He was sued with them too.
I mean, it's like my guy was in every organization under the sun. The cops are like, those are his hunting grounds.
Yeah.
And the same for this guy.
Yeah.
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 After this started happening to you, you sort of abandoned school work.
Oh yeah, my learning stopped in 3rd grade.
3rd grade.
4th grade, I didn't pick up anything after that.
And you did like no work. You learned nothing, and they still passed you.
Yeah.
As long as you would show up, like you're not like tests. You've got to be failing tests and
Everything.
stuff. And they would just
everything.
Change a grade at the end just so you're barely passed to get.
Yeah, I was at school every day because I couldn't stay home. My parents sent us to school. But that's the law in New Jersey. As long as you're there, they can't fail you. But the reason why I was passing through these grades was I was such a problem. Not only for the bullying, but for the teachers. I didn't listen to nothing. I'm not learning. And now I'm just like, they just passed me on because passed me on to the next grade.
Just wanted to get rid of you.
The teachers see me, who got Mike Gonzalez this year? I was like, yeah, that's how bad it was. So they were just passing me just to get rid of me, is why they were doing that. Because I was down in the nurse's office every day for something, or they throw me in the school closet for my behavior, or make me stand outside because I was so disruptive. Because I knew if they called on me to stand up to read, I can't read. I'm going to embarrass myself. So I had to be a disruption to myself to get me out of that. I had to plan my day to not be embarrassed.
Right.
And that was my defense mechanism. There's not being embarrassed, being a bully. All that is coming into play. And how am I going to learn something if I know I'm being molested at 12 o'clock?
Right.
I'm not worried about ABCs. I'm worried about
what's going to happen in that closet.
Surviving that day today.
Right.
And who am I going to beat up maybe today or whatever it's going to be.
And when you graduated, you couldn't read or write.
Total illiterate.
Total illiterate. Yeah. Graduating high school.
And at that time, I said, what am I going to do with my life when I graduated? And I ran into this recruiter that used to hang around in the bars because I was 18 in 11th grade.
Because he kept you back that 1 year so he could have
so at
more
lunchtime
time
in high school, I'm going to go drink in the bar.
So 18 was the drinking age back then. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that. My brother, was 18 when he was 6 years older than me. So you go to football practice and then go to the bar.
I was seasoned by then because I started drinking and smoking weed at 5th grade.
5th grade.
That's when that all started.
And was that just to help you cope with your thoughts?
Yeah. I'm gonna get high today. Smoke some weed. That's mainly what it was. And there's the alcohol too. But
just so it blurs out what's going on.
Oh wow, man, I'm high, man. And whatever, that was just the feeling that made me cope. To go smoke a joint, because I felt whatever. It was. But that was crazy.
So your junior year, because you stayed back, you could go to bars and drink.
Yeah.
That's
and then I go to wood shop after that because that was my next class. With the bandsaws and everything else, I'm student. My next class is after was wood shop. And I'm drunk. But the teachers don't recognize this. It was just,
So what, at lunchtime, you would go to the bar?
yeah, the next
That's-
town over, Palisades Park. Yeah, because Leonia is the dry town.
Oh, yeah.
And then, so I'd go to the next town, have a couple of beers, whatever.
And then go back to school.
Yeah.
Nobody ever said anything to
No.
you about you smell like beer,
No.
you're high.
No.
Oh, just,
No.
let's just get
pass this guy
let's
on.
get Gonzalez out of here.
Yeah.
So nobody's coming to little Michael's rescue.
No. Yeah, everybody failed me. Not just me, but everybody else that's
All the
involved in
kids.
this.
Yeah.
The whole town failed us. The family members failed us.
Before you and your brother Joe ever came forward, somebody else came forward and filed a lawsuit.
Yeah, this was back in 1981. He's already been a teacher in that school for 15 years, 7 years, 14, 15 years. And
Everybody loves him.
everybody loves him. He's leaving that school every day, 5, 6 kids. He's jamming in his car, weekends. This is going on for 14 years. Day in and day out, 24/7. This guy's with kids.
Right.
Nobody recognizes the shit. The cops in town, everything. And at this time, I'm in the military. And I'm in Germany. And my mother comes over for a visit. She ended up coming over there because she got a free ticket. Because some guy that lived on our block, he was a German dude, and he worked for Deutsche Bank. And they did documents back and forth, to deliver. And so he gave my mother some free, transfer some documents, and she came over for a visit. And on her way home, when I was driving her back home to Frankfurt Airport, we were driving her back with this girl I was dating over there, and my mom was like, "Oh, Mr. Ray, he's been getting charged with child molestation and back home." And she's like, "Oh, did he ever do anything to you guys? Because I know you guys were with him a lot." I was like, "Nah, Mom," and of course I denied it, And yeah, that's when he was being 1981 when some kid finally spoke up.
And people in the town rallied around him, not the victim.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, they had a fundraisers for him and stuff. It was all written up in the New York Times. It was a pretty big event back then. They had the fundraisers and dinners, the townspeople, and so it splitted the town because they all said, "Oh no, this guy's so great. He's so innovative teacher," and this, and they couldn't believe it. Yeah, and one of the ringleaders of that was this guy that owned this TV clinic, and my brother Joe worked for him. He has to work for this guy because he would put up stuff on his window, support Mr. A and all the benefits for him. My brother had to bear that.
Ugh. Dirty secret that is just poisoning people.
At that time, I come home on leave. I think it was like 1980. And this is going on, protests on the street because they locked up this kid's father that was making these claims because he was walking up and down Broad Avenue in Leonia with signs saying that this teacher molested my son, and he would show up at these fundraisers and grab the microphone, and the cops came and locked him up, put him in a straitjacket, put him in Bergen Pines, a mental institution in Paramus.
Really?
Yeah. The police, for him speaking up about how his son was molested.
Ugh.
So now I'm home on leave watching all this play out, right? And I'm hanging out at this bar that, I hung out at. And I don't know how I found out where he lived. I can't pin who told me that. But somebody brought him up because I guess they knew what was going on in Leonia. And we must have been talking about it at the bar, wherever I was, but somebody knew his address. And they told me where he lived. So now I'm at the bar planning out his murder. That, all right, hey, I'm going to go over his house. I'm going to kill him. But I'm going to go back to Germany. Nobody's ever going to know I did it. That was my thinking.
Right.
That was my plan because, I'm half in the bag. So that's what I did. I drove up to his house, his condominium in Fort Lee, and I knocked on his door. He answered the door. He sees it's me because I hadn't seen him in like maybe 5 or 6 years after this, maybe. But he recognized me and he lets me in. And I remember him shutting the door, and I'm ready to jump him, but he was quicker than me. He turned around and walked off and went into another room. And while he did that, I'm standing around in his house looking for something to grab. And how am I, what am I going to do when he comes out that door? He was in there for a few minutes at least. And I'm waiting for him to come out. But at that time, I'm coming down off my high and my drunkenness. And I'm not saying to myself, oh, who saw me come in here? I'm starting to think about what I was going to do to him. Then he came out of the room. He's like, oh, you got to go. I was on the phone with my lawyer or something like that. And they said, you got to go. Because maybe whoever he was talking to thought I was wearing a wire or something. And I was sent there. Because at this time, all that stuff's going down with him.
He's got this lawsuit going on.
Yeah, so they probably think I'm setting him up. And that's why he told me to leave. But I was there to kill him. I don't know why he thought I was there.
Right.
But he let me in the house, and his quick thinking is what saved me and him too.
All right.
From what happened to you.
Yeah.
Because I often think about that a lot. And that was my starting point, my journey into
to heal
was that day, because I knew what could have happened to me, exactly what happened to you.
Right.
I knew that.
So when did you eventually take the next step of breaking your silence? And how long later?
I met my wife when I came out of the military. We dated, and I believe we were engaged. So now I got to tell her my secret.
Because I have husbands and wives reach out to me and be like, I haven't told my spouse. You're the first person I'm telling. But you decided to tell your future wife.
Because I come with some baggage. It's emotional and, my demeanor, who I am. I'm an angry guy. Very angry guy. I'll snap in a minute. That's just a defense mechanism for me. So I told my wife, and I told her what happened. She was the first one. And she's great because she eased my pain by telling me what happened to her. She was also
She had her own story?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was the first one she shared with that. She was molested by her stepfather. And to ease my pain, she told me that, to soften my blow, I guess. So I knew she was the right woman for me.
Wow.
To open up like that, just to, so she's my guardian angel now. Finally realized that, man. No, but anyway,
wow.
That's how it all, I came out with that. But me and my mother's always had a rough relationship because of the way she had no idea that I was an illiterate. So I always thought that I was the failure in the family about all the boys. And so she was kind of rough with me, not understanding why I was the way I was. And not, she didn't know I was uneducated, but couldn't keep a job, on drugs, alcohol, and I guess she held that against me because I wasn't like my other brothers, They all became police officers and, good jobs, and I was always the black sheep of the family. So me and my mother always had a tough relationship. So one time we weren't speaking, and my father had come over to where I was living. He dropped something off, and when he was leaving, I just blurted it out for some reason. Oh, Dad, tell Mom when you get home I was molested by Mr. Ray. That's what came out.
Wow.
And he gets in his car and he leaves. A little while later that day, I get a phone call from my mother, crying. I said, well, but that's how it all started and came out. That's how I told my parents. Yeah, and then the next thing you know, all the relatives know, friends. So that started the process. Now everybody knows, but the town's not really aware still of what happened.
But you did something social media wise.
Yeah, well, so I stayed silent all those years, besides my family and relatives and stuff like that, my children, they all knew about me. They don't know about my brother Joe yet. But I know about my brother Joe because when I came out, he privately called me and told me about what happened to him.
So when you said that to your father, he told your mother, it circled back to Joe, and then Joe
And the rest of the family, cousins, relatives, aunts, circle back to all.
and then Joe called you.
Joe called me one day and told me what happened to him, but he never went into detail. I thought maybe once or twice it happened to him. No, I was unaware about what really happened to him. Just that I know he was molested, but that was just a secret between me and him that I never exposed. I just kept that. My wife knew. I told her, of course.
How much longer was it when you made a comment on a social media post?
2018.
So that's a while.
Yeah.
So the military thing when you went to his house was like 80, 81?
That was 1980, yeah.
And this is now what now?
2018.
2018 when you made that comment on the post?
Yeah.
So you stayed silent
Yeah. I think I was
for 38
Yeah.
years?
Yeah.
Wow. And then
knowing that there was other victims out there and stuff, but my story stayed silent.
tell us about the
So
social
I'm
media
on
post.
Facebook, right? And there's these groups, and there's a group. I grew up in Leonia, kind of group thing. Everybody talks about their Leonia experiences, whatever. Well, anyway, they're talking about the school teachers back then in Annecy Scott School back in like 74, and there's pictures of all the school teachers back then, and that's on Facebook, and they're all commenting about this Mr. Aganassi, the child molester, how innovative he was, and his teaching, and all these great things he was doing. And I'm reading this shit. I'm like, what, are you fucking kidding me? I just went over the top with it, and that's when I came out with saying what he did to me. But also at the same time, I was also apologizing for being a bully. I added that all in because I was apologizing to all those people that were reading this, that, I was just out there because I know people that I bully were going to read it. And I was trying to explain why I was a bully and what this guy was doing to me. And some people were positive, and then some people were very negative because they didn't care what happened to me, or they were worried about me. It was what I did to them, which is understandable. And I still carry that guilt with me the rest of my life, but they didn't understand. So I took that post down because of the embarrassment. And then 2 years later or so, I had COVID, and I'm laying in bed, and this commercial comes on TV. It's like, oh, if you've been molested by a school teacher in New Jersey, this and that, call this number. I'm like, school teachers in New Jersey, before it was just priests.
Right.
You couldn't do anything because there was limitations on the school teachers.
This is after, in 2019, we got the law passed.
Yeah, this was after 2019.
So,
I had seen this commercial on TV. I think they put commercials out, these law firms, or
Right.
whatever was going on.
Right.
I happened to see it being home. If I wasn't home on COVID, I would have never seen this commercial. I would have been working. I would have lost out because I only got the last month of that 2-year open window. I caught it, and I called the number, got in touch with this law firm. They heard my story, and then they patched me onto some other law firm, and they took my case because they had another victim with the same teacher. That was another miracle. He must have seen the same commercial and called too. But he seen that he was already a year ahead of me. He had filed a year ahead of me. So then I came on, and then I brought my brother Joe in. So it was 3 of us.
And how did you get Joe involved? You just called Joe and said, I'm
I
going to file
said,
a
Joe,
lawsuit.
listen, I don't want to leave you out because I know what happened to you. I can't do this without telling you. I said, but if you want to join a lawsuit, you're going to have to tell mom and dad because it's going to get out in the paper. They're going to find out. So he struggled with that for a while. And then one day he called them and he told them. And I had just lost my little brother to cancer before he told them. We just lost him a couple months before he told them. So not only did my mother lose her younger son to cancer, now my younger brother's telling her he was almost molested by this teacher. So there was a big blow to them, man, in this time frame. Yeah.
Well,
So he told them, and he joined the lawsuit, and came together, And me and my brother were successful in our suit.
Okay.
We sued them. We had a nice outcome.
Now, was this guy still alive?
No, he was dead.
When did he die?
He died about 5 years ago when they tried to serve him, the county, with the papers
For your lawsuit?
for my lawsuit. They found out he died, so they couldn't serve him. So that's how we knew he was dead. Yeah, he was only living down the block from me, too.
Wow.
The same town, yeah.
Did people in the town who originally like stood up for him, did they, did your story get out? Your lawsuit? Was it in
No, they try to keep it as quiet as possible.
the town
Yeah, well, the Board of Ed.
Board of Ed?
They had no legal obligation to tell anybody. They do, but tamp it down. They don't have to tell So
Probably because they don't want more victims coming
yeah,
forward.
everybody was caught off guard by this. The whole community. They don't realize they're all up in arms because now they're going to be filing another lawsuit in November with 30 victims.
So there's a new lawsuit
Yeah.
with this against the same teacher
At the Board of Ed. Yeah.
with at least 30 people in it.
Yeah, because these people all missed that limitation, that window that me and my brother Joe were able, and this guy Dan, were able to take advantage of. They had no idea that even existed. So now they're trying to sue again under those circumstances, but they're going to have to argue that in court because that window closed.
Right.
So that's part of my advocacy too, is try to get that window with no limitations, so these people have an opportunity to address what happened to them. It's not fair.
How did you go from being this bully, heavy drinker, drug user, locked in silence? How did you go? How'd you get to a point where you could say, I'm going to come forward? Like, because so many people take it to the grave or die of drugs or die of alcoholism.
See, like you said, the key word, I can't take this to my grave. I ain't going to my grave with this. There's no way. I knew this was all going to happen. I foreseed all this because I don't want to sound like I'm weird or crazy, but you develop, I was uneducated. So I had to cope. I got to find other mechanisms to get through life. So I had to develop other kind of skills or whatever. So everything I do is always planned out ahead because I know what's coming. I'm uneducated, so I have to plan about what's going to come. Like, I got to take my wife to the doctor's office with me because I can't fill out applications to this day.
Wow.
Yeah, I can read because, I taught myself to read. But as far as writing and stuff, because I never sat there in school and had the right pronunciations of stuff. I can't put words together. I just don't have that skill. I mean, after 3 syllables or 3 letters, I'm lost. I can't pronounce the words.
So you got a school district that not only had a wolf, like, as a teacher, you got a school district that passed a kid along without the basics of learning to read and write and graduated them.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Just to get rid of me because of how I was like, but not knowing what was happening to me.
Nobody looking in any deeper why you're acting the way you are.
Yeah. The town just totally failed us. I mean, he's not the first guy. Just it doesn't stop in that town. It just keeps on going on. Even to the present day, they're dropping lawsuits against other teachers about what happened there too in other years. That it's coming to light now.
Right.
Because they picked up on our story. Now people are coming out about other teachers in the same town. And I've had experiences with some of these teachers that were fired too when we were younger. Some of the crazy nonsense they were doing with us. And they hired these guys as teachers. And it's still going on to this day. And what's going on with the police chief in the town too, these accusations against him. It's just, you start to wonder what's going on in this town.
Right.
Through my experiences with these survivors, not only are they talking about their teachers, they're talking about their parents too. The mothers, their own mothers. This is all happening in the same town. So you just start to think, what the heck is going on? And you had all these weirdos running around these towns, and it was just like, what's going on here?
Anybody from the school like ever reach out to you? Apologize? No, nobody.
That's why we want that too. We want counselors coming in for all the victims, them changing the laws and their policies in town to really strict laws like the Boys and Girls Clubs have these days. They have really strict policies. And we're trying to change that, and we're trying to go through each district in our county to these schools and make them aware what happened in Leonia. People got to wake up.
If I asked you, like, what's your biggest regret? What would you wish you had changed? What would you wish you had done different? What have you learned throughout this? What would you say?
My biggest regret is not saying anything. I carry the burden of everybody that's been molested in my mind, because I was his first victim. If I would have said something the first time, none of this would have ever happened. None of it. But that's what I carry. Everybody says, oh, Mike, you can't think like that. But you don't walk in my shoes, Because I think I'm a strong guy. I look at myself now. I was like, why did I let myself do that? Because I'm a very outspoken person these days. I guess because of that. I'm very defensive and strong-willed. But back then, I couldn't say anything. But because I'm looking back at it now, and I always say, why didn't I say something? I could have protected my brother Joe. His life could have been different, because, he's been in and out of rehabs, alcoholism. He just got out of rehab, because of this experience doing back in rehab. This is his third time, So, and all these other guys and girls now, we always thought it was boys, it's girls too. And some people won't even come out because they're so ashamed and join the lawsuit and stuff. So that's part of my advocacy too, is to draw, the people out and try to say it's okay, but it's hard. It ain't that easy. But that first step, it gets you off on the right foot.
Right. Break your silence.
Yeah,
speak out.
It's true.
Don't keep this poison inside.
It's true.
It's not your shame to carry.
No, you're right.
And then I always say, like, you take your healing to the next level when you can help somebody else. And that's what you're trying to do
That's
now.
where I am today. That's why I'm so freely about talking about it. I'm an open book. I do get emotional, but it's the best part of the healing.
You told me you quit drinking like back in 95, I think?
Yeah, that was back in 1995. I had gotten hurt at work and I needed some back operations. And being out of work, I ain't making no money. I can't be going out to the bars and boozing it up, coking it up. That whole
atmosphere.
Poison, man. And I got children at this time too. And I'm still dealing, with the drinking and the partying and all that, and the infidelity and all that stuff, And it just cascaded. So now I'm saying, how am I going to do? Well, I got to quit drinking. I'm out of work. So I just gave it up. I never liked alcohol anyway, so it was kind of easy for me to do it. I just did it to socialize. I never liked the taste of it, so kind of easy. But yeah, I quit drinking about over 30 years ago. I'm not saying quit totally. I'll have a beer or two, but that's about it. But I don't drink, So it just leads to other things right then, So it was easier for me than, other people.
And then hopefully this time with your brother works for him.
Yeah, I was just with him in Georgia over the weekend, so
good.
He's doing good, but you can tell he's on edge.
I commend you for finally speaking out.
Yeah,
I know how tough it is.
Yeah,
I tell people the toughest thing you'll ever do is break your silence. The most rewarding thing you'll ever do is break your silence.
I really appreciate this opportunity, man, and like. All this is meant to be, seeing your podcast and knowing Mark, and this was all supposed to happen. I realize that, and that's why it's I'm able to talk like I do and be open about it. It's not for me anymore. It's not about me anymore. It's about who's still out there.
So if you grew up in Leonia and you were a victim of Mr. A, come forward.
Yeah. But once again, thanks, Clark. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks
All
for
right.
coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, everybody, there you have it. Don't let that shame keep you in silence. Break your silence. Start healing. Be like Michael and speak your truth. And it's always the most popular coach, priest, Boy Scout leader, teacher. That's how they win over the community, then the family, then the victim. So watch out. See you next week.